What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Montana Method podcast once again. As always, your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author, writer of the Montana Method. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine that I've met a few years ago, and we've become good friends ever since. She's an interesting person because she's involved in many different things. And what's the old saying? Jack of all trades. She's more of a master of all of them. The second half of that saying doesn't apply to her. We're gonna get into spirituality topics. We're gonna get into maybe some tattooing stuff and all around just different things she's into. Please welcome my good friend Cin Rondon.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much, Nelson. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
For sure.
And thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad we get to do this.
Definitely. I'm excited.
Yeah, same. Me too.
How have you been? How's your day? What'd you do this morning?
I worked on some stuff. I worked on a piece I started a couple nights ago, an art piece.
You do so many versions of art, man. It's really cool.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's, I do call myself a multifaceted person because I go in between different dimensions of many different things that we can get into. I don't believe in limits. We're limitless beings. And, like I told you in the car, yeah, we're spiritual beings having the human experience, but being the human is a spiritual experience. So we got to make sure that we tap into different things and see what works and what flows and what doesn't. At least you tried it.
Definitely.
So yeah,
sure.
I worked on a couple things this morning, but other than that, everything's
That's awesome.
it's flowing.
It's funny that you did your eye makeup that way today because you know my nickname. You know I call you Cleopatra.
Yeah.
That's really cool. You see, that's the universe lining up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're originally from Venezuela, right? Okay.
Born in Venezuela, in Caracas. I lived in Caracas. I lived in Valencia. I also lived in Los Teques before we moved to the States. I moved here in 1989, so I was 10 years old when we moved here with my family, my parents, and two of my younger sisters at the time.
And that Venezuela was very, very different from the Venezuela of today.
It was completely different from what they're experiencing. Like, we never got to experience that because we left 10 years before, like, the whole takeover.
Right.
I do have family that, stayed behind. I have a lot of family that are no longer there. I have family everywhere in the world, pretty much, because everyone kind of migrated to different areas. I have an aunt that lives in Switzerland. I have family members that live in Chile, in Argentina, in Peru, in Panama. It's like everywhere.
It's similar to us. There's Cubans all over the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have family. I have a distant cousin in Switzerland. I have another cousin that lives in Mexico. I have another one that lives over in Peru. Like, we're the same. You could go to any country and find Cubans.
Yeah.
It's really funny. I don't know if you know, like, the Cuban artists, like Chagal and Chulo and all these guys, right? All these Spanish reggaeton guys, Cuban guys. They do little mini tours in different countries, and no matter where they go, it's like a crowd of Cubans will find them.
Of course.
We're everywhere.
Everywhere. It's a beautiful thing, though, because, you get to experience different cultures, and then you bring our culture into those areas that maybe they never even knew who Cubans were or Venezuelans were. So now they get a little taste of it.
Yeah. That's my mission in life. I don't know if I ever told you that. My whole process, my whole purpose behind this is to bring me to the world, and a big part of me is my culture.
Yeah.
It's Cuban culture and Miami and how I was raised. There's so many things that I think we take for granted in Miami because we see them every day. And then you introduce them to someone who's never been here or has never seen the culture, and they find it so fascinating, right? So what's that I was saying? The familiar is boring, and the unfamiliar is exciting. I forgot the saying.
Yeah, it's like novelty.
Yeah. So that's my mission. Yeah, I told you I'm writing a comic book. No? Okay. Well, we'll get into that later. That's my whole mission.
I dig that.
Yeah, and hopefully I'm in the process of writing a TV show script for it too. So that's my whole mission, to bring my culture. And the only thing I want to do with those artistic outlets is just introduce my culture to the world.
Which is a beautiful thing.
Definitely. 100%.
Dope.
Are you still like, eat arepas and...
Oh, yeah, of course. You can take the Venezuelan girl out of Venezuela, but you can never take her arepas away. I actually made arepas a couple nights ago for me and my son.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Venezuelan food is so fire.
It is fire.
God.
It
Dude.
is fire. I mean, I think all Latin countries, like in South America, Central
you can't go
America...
wrong. There's not one.
Everybody has at least un plato that's like, okay, this is the go-to. This is fire. This is what I'm having like every day.
Seriously. I went to Colombia July of 2021, and I had never eaten a bandeja paisa in my life. Bro.
Not even here?
No, not even here. It was so good. Oh, my God.
Yeah, bandeja paisas are a lot. It's a lot of food, though.
And it was like $1, bro. It was so cheap.
Well, if you ever want to have cheap food, leave the States.
Yeah, for sure, right? It's... All right, so you come to the States in 89.
In 1989, I was 10.
You were 10.
I was a jit. I was a jit.
You came in an interesting time. The 90s were in Miami was interesting.
I mean, I got to see different facets of Miami. Like, I've seen the change that's happened in the past 33 years,
Right.
like with my own two eyes, And Miami is a melting pot.
For sure.
And when we came here, like, it was mostly, like, the Latin population was basically Cubans or Nicaraguans. And a few Colombians here and there. There was hardly any Venezuelans here.
Unlike today.
Unlike today, that Doral, Aventura, it's all, like, Venezuelandia.
Right.
But it was quiet. It was a lot of older people. My parents couldn't find a house to rent because no one would rent to people that had children.
Wow.
So it took us at least 2.5 months to find a home. We were living in hotel rooms. Like, we would switch hotels once a week because there was only so much you can do, And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a musician, and he came here, and he had to work construction because you work whatever you could. And
Right.
when you have a family to provide for, you do whatever it takes.
Right. 110%.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents came... my mom came in Mariel in 1980. Mm-hmm. She came when she was 9. So she basically was heavily Americanized and spoke English fluently. And so I have there are different versions of, like, the immigrant story in my family because my father came in 1988 when he was a grown man. He was 22.
Okay.
So I had an interesting upbringing because my mother understood American culture and she liked 80s, LL Cool J.
She came as a kid.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And she spoke fluent English and I spoke English with her in the house and then my dad spoke no English. So it was interesting having that mix, especially and like I said, the 90s. I grew up in the 90s. So the 90s in Miami was a special era.
Yeah, the 90s was definitely, you did whatever you wanted and there was no evidence of it.
Pretty much, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah, it was a dope time. It was great growing up in the 90s, at least for me. We had so many different things going on. Like, you were out in the street and nothing would happen to you. It's like now my kid is like, oh, Mom, I'm coming home. And I'm like, you better be home by 11 o'clock because, shit is going on outside, But I'm definitely grateful that we moved here when we did, that my parents, got the click in their head and they're like, nah, we got to go.
Yeah.
And they brought us here and they provided as much as they could. They did the best they could and got to be grateful for that.
Definitely, for sure. So 89, you start growing up, it's the 90s. So when do you get into art? Like, when is art?
Art has been a part of my life since I was a kid. My mom was an artist. My dad was a musician. So I come from a family of musicians and artists. I started doing art when I was a kid. I was in dance. I did every possible thing you can think of because I'm a highly energetic person to begin with. So my mom is like, you're driving me insane. You need to I need to find outlets for you to do stuff. So she put me in dance. I was a cheerleader once upon a time when I was like 6 or 7.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, no, me either. I'm like, how can me? Really?
You seem more like the goth girl.
I was never into the goth scene.
Right.
But
so one would assume,
Right. I did dance, ballet. I played piano. I played guitar for a little bit, but I gave up. Like, I quit guitar after 3 weeks because I started getting calluses on my fingers. And I'm like, Dad, I give up. And he's like, but how can you give up already? I'm like, because my fingers hurt. I give up. I did painting. I did drawing. What else? I used to sing once upon a time before I started smoking blunts. And then my voice kind of said, no, bye.
Your lung capacity was done.
Yeah. But yeah, I did a bunch of different things. I never really followed through with my art because real life happened to me. I went to, elementary school, I went to 2 elementary schools here. I went to F.S. Tucker, which is in the Grove. And then I went to Amberdale Elementary, 6th grade. So 5th grade, I was in the Grove. 6th grade, I went to Amberdale. And then 7th grade, I went to Kinloch Park Middle.
I went to Kinloch Park Elementary. That's funny.
And then 8th grade, I went to Ponds. And then high school came around and I went to Gables. So I had the opportunity to go to New World and I said no. Like, none of my friends are going to New World. I really don't want to pursue anything in art. Like, no, this is stupid. So I decided to stay in Gables and I started and I finished. I graduated in 97, so class of 97, let's go. And then after that, my parents decided that they want to buy a house down in Country Walk, which there was nothing out there at the time, like nada. And we moved. And I was like, yeah, this is not for me. I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest child. And I had her when I was 19. I was a single mom at 19. I went through a very rough patch in my pregnancy. I was homeless. Not for too long, but I was homeless for maybe like 3.5 weeks. I was sleeping in my car while pregnant. And then whatever, I gave birth. I had my kid. She was healthy. She was beautiful. Then I started working whatever jobs I can find because, now I have a kid. Now I have someone to provide for. So I worked in the food industry. I worked at Bascom Palmer. I used to prepare the patient's trays. And then I got into like doing different things, like doing different jobs, worked at a flower shop. And then I ended up meeting my ex-husband. He was my neighbor. He was my upstairs neighbor. And I ended up hooking up with him. We ended up getting married. I ended up getting pregnant with my second child. My relationship was a fucking disaster.
No, don't marry your neighbor. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Don't get married.
I'm kidding. Anyway.
Don't get married. It's a trap. I ended up having to go through like a lot. I went through a lot. 4 kids later, I ended up working in the dental field.
That's when I met you. You were working in the dental field.
I was working in the dental field. I worked in the corporate dental field for 20 years. So yeah, even though I look like this, I did not look like this. I lived a very like typical, wife, mother, running dental offices for many years. And when COVID came around, it was like, we're going to shake you up a bit. We're going to take you out of your comfort zone. And I think it was a wonderful change for me. It was definitely something I needed to be able to get back into my creative process, to be able to create again and do things that I wanted to do. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to.
Sometimes things happen to us and we think they're a curse and they're the biggest blessing ever, right?
For me, it was a blessing. Like, I was able to take myself out of the emotional state of losing my job. And I was like, okay, now what are you going to do? And I'm very fortunate enough to have friends that extended their hands out to me. And they're like, my friend offered me a job. She's like, you want to be my assistant? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you get to create, now you get to run my businesses. I get to focus on something else. So I started running her online stores, creating her content for her, being creative, you know what I mean? And it turned out to be a beautiful thing. I learned a lot of things along the way that now I've been able to create it as my own, and I was able to now have my own business.
It's sort of, how the process, we'll get into your butterfly garden in a second.
Yes.
Years ago, I learned the process of what a caterpillar goes through to become a butterfly, and it's pretty crazy. So I'm sure you know this already, just for the audience. So the caterpillar creates the cocoon, and it breaks itself down into a mush, into goo, into nothing.
Yep.
And from that goo, it rebuilds itself into a butterfly. And to escape the cocoon, it actually has to exude strength. And if it wasn't for the struggle that they have to go through to break the cocoon open, they wouldn't have strength in their wings. So if you actually go and try to break the cocoon open, they're not going to be able to fly away.
Correct.
You're going to break the cocoon open, they're going to crawl out with their wings all broken and damaged, and they're going to die. So basically, it's crazy that the pandemic happened and shook that up in your life, because if it wasn't for the pandemic happening and you losing your career, you wouldn't have reinvented yourself, right? So I can totally relate to that. That's happened to me in my life, where things happen and I think it's a really bad thing, and it ends up being a total blessing, because that led me to do something else, which is part of the reason why I was able to write my book, because things happened in my life and I wasn't in the same career anymore. I wasn't in the same field, and I was just basically had a lot of time on my hands and I wasn't working. And I told myself, man, if I die tomorrow, what proof is there that I was here? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
What legacy are you leaving
exactly.
behind?
And I remembered I loved writing ever since I was little, and I wrote the book. It took me 6 months, and here we are. So
It's a great book.
thank you.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I read it. I gave it to my son so he can read it as well.
Thank you.
He's in the process of like reading 2 other books, and he's like, I got that one next, Mom. I'm like, all right, make sure you read it.
Good.
That's my homie. He wrote it.
I got the millennials and the Gen Zers now. The audiobook comes out next month. So,
Amazing.
yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
I know.
Are you doing the audio in the audiobook? Are you reading it
I'm
yourself?
reading it myself.
Okay, dope.
In English and Spanish, yeah. So
Yes.
soon to be available.
Soon come.
Definitely. So since we're on the subject of butterflies, you have a
Yes.
butterfly garden.
So-
when did you get into that?
I got into racing butterflies 2 years ago. So there's a friend of mine who's an artist. He's a local artist. His name is Frankie Cruz. He invited me to his studio one day. Like, we have been following each other on social media, and I always like saw his butterflies, and I was just like taken aback, because I've been fascinated by butterflies since I was 2. In Venezuela, I used to sit in a field and get surrounded by butterflies. Like, they would always fly around me.
Super cool.
It was super dope. And I always wanted to have a garden of my own. So I link up with my friend. He starts teaching me like the ins and outs of what it takes to create a butterfly garden, which is really not that difficult. Like, you just need to have a little bit of patience and the time to dedicate to them.
Right.
So I was an avid cannabis smoker. Like, I smoked weed for 30 years. I started smoking when I was 11. I was legit smoking weed. I took my first J from my brother's stash, actually. So I decided in November 1st of 2020, I had already started the garden, maybe 3 months prior to that. And it was getting expensive because you have to buy plants constantly. Because once you have caterpillars, and if you have an extensive amount of caterpillars, they'll go through one plant in one day. If you have 10 caterpillars, they're going to eat that plant in one day. So I had already started the garden, but I was like, holy shit, I'm spending a lot of money on these plants. You know what I mean? And November 1st, I decided I'm going to take a 21-day break from smoking and from social media. And as I started going through that break, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not spending money on weed. Maybe I can go and get plants. So I started trapping butterflies. Instead of spending my money on weed, I started investing it into my garden. And here we are, 2 years later. I haven't smoked.
Wow.
Yeah,
Big change, huh?
For me, it was huge, because it got to the point where weed became my pacifier. I was happy and I smoked. I was sad and I smoked. I was depressed and I smoked. I was cooking and I was smoking. I was waking up and I was smoking. I was going to sleep with a blunt in my mouth. You know what I mean? So it became my pacifier. It was habitual. It wasn't like I was smoking just for recreational purposes. And yes,
Right.
I was using it for medicine as well, because I suffer from chronic migraines and chronic back pain and all these things. But then it began to be like, okay, I'm not feeling any type of relief from it because I'm smoking so much.
You built a huge
A
tolerance.
huge tolerance. I was smoking an ounce in a week.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Little me, yeah. I can smoke. I can smoke like a fucking chimney. So I decided to just invest my money. I'm still using plants, but I'm just not, ingesting them anymore. I'm actually giving back. And this garden has taught me so much about our own process as human beings of death and rebirth. Because like you say, yes. So the butterfly goes through 4 different processes before it becomes a butterfly. So first is an egg. Then it becomes a larva. Then it becomes a caterpillar. Once that caterpillar has eaten plenty, it goes into its cocoon. And once it's in that cocoon, in the chrysalis, because cocoons are what moths create. Butterflies create chrysalises. So once it goes into there, like you said, it literally has to destroy itself. It destroys itself completely. The only thing that's left from the caterpillar, it's its central nervous system.
Its brain, basically.
And it has no recollection. Because once it becomes a butterfly, it has no recollection of being a caterpillar. It has no memory of it. So 7 to 10 days later, the butterfly emerges. Now, there's times when a butterfly will not fully emerge. It'll emerge with like a broken wing or a damaged wing. And it happens in nature. Like, it kind of sucks when it happens in your garden because you're like constantly watching. And I sit in my balcony for hours. And I talk to my caterpillars and I water my plants. And it's a whole process. It's a beautiful thing to watch it because it reflects a lot of your own growth and your own transformation. Should I change once a month? I change my hair once a month. I'm not the same person I was maybe 20 minutes ago. You know what I mean? And that's part of this whole process of creating. Evolution. We're here to create. Like I say, I live in a constant state of evolution. If you're not changing, you're not living or shifting. I don't care what you say. Yeah, the change is uncomfortable, but you need to be uncomfortable. Otherwise, you wouldn't move. Otherwise, you wouldn't grow. So it's an entire process that these caterpillars and these butterflies have shown me, like, yo, you've gone through this. If we can make it, you can make it too. And don't get me wrong, I have my moments when I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, am I really in this bitch? Like, am I really a human? Yes, you're very much in it. Like, now live through it.
Right.
You know?
Isn't it so cool how in life we can learn these lessons from something as simple as deciding to start a garden? You know what I mean? Life, when you look at life through the right eyes, the simplest things will teach you a lesson.
Oh, yeah.
So, I work sales, right? It's definitely an exciting job, a lot of income potential. And I deal with a lot of people who like don't want to commit, obviously, right? I deal with a lot of people because I work at Cadillac. So my job is to get people to show up to the dealer. And I deal with this. So what time can you pass by? In the morning, the afternoon? No, I'll call you back and I'll let you know. I don't know. I don't want to commit.
People are flaky.
Right. And the first thing that always pops up in my brain, just from hearing someone simply just refuse to commit to a time, right? The first thing that pops in my brain is, where else does that show up in your life? Where else do you refuse to commit? Where else do you refuse to take a chance and say, okay, I'm sure maybe I can go at this time? It's a possible that you won't keep your word. Something might happen.
Right.
However, are you going to trust yourself enough to say, all right, I'm going to do it at this time, and I'm going to do my best to do it, right? That's an example of an appointment, but it shows up in other areas of your life, right? So I don't know if I can lose 10 pounds next month, but you know what? I'm gonna work out 3 times a week, and I'm going to diet, and I'm going to set the goal, and I'm going to go for it. It's more scared of, I think more than anything, it's fear of failure.
People are scared of failing, not realizing that you need to fail.
Yeah.
We have to fail.
For sure.
Because if you don't fail, then you don't know what victory will feel like. You have to lose.
110%.
And like I say, I'm like, yo, when people are like, oh, I took an L, you took a lesson. Because what did you learn from it? You might have lost the goal at hand, but you gained something. You gained experience through it. And people forget that. People forget to live the experience of it.
Sure.
Like, yeah, everybody wants to win. But if everybody wins, then everything tastes sweet.
Right.
You know, we live in a world of duality. You can't have the black without the white.
That's part of the reason I picked the cover. Yeah, it's the Scarface cover, but it's the yin and the yang, you know? Yeah.
And it's in nature. It's in everything.
Yeah.
We
100%.
live, the Earth school is the school of duality. You come here to learn how to transcend it.
Definitely.
To understand that you need both. You need the good and the bad.
For sure. 110%.
You need the highs and you need the lows. Peaks and valleys. If you don't have peaks and valleys in your life, you're not living. Because when they plug you onto an EKG machine to check your heart, you see it on the screen, the bloop, 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 bloop. If you're flat, you're dead. You have to be able to move with the experience. Okay, what's next? I wake up every day not knowing what the fuck I'm going to do. Because as a freelancer and someone that owns her own business, which it's social media, I run social media pages, you know what I mean? That's one of the many things I do. But sometimes I wake up and I'm like, okay, what do you need me to do today? I'm led by spirit. So utilize me as the guide for whatever needs to be done. Maybe today a friend might need me for something. Maybe today my son just needs me to be a mom and needs me to listen. Maybe I'll get called for booked for something. Okay, let's ride.
Right.
When people ask me, I told you, what do you do for a living? And I tell them whatever it takes, they look at me like I'm fucking crazy. What do you mean, whatever it takes? Do you want me to really give you a list of the things that I'm capable of doing? Because I'll do whatever it takes. A friend of mine, I'm fixing a bathroom. Can you come help me?
Sure.
I got you. And I show up, and I do the job.
So,
Yo no le tengo miedo a trabajar. I'm not afraid of working. I'm not afraid of getting my hands dirty.
Seguro. That's awesome.
You know, I do whatever it takes. I got children to support.
No, I mean, hey. You know, you got to do your thing.
Exactly.
So, when did you start getting your tattoos?
So my first tattoo ever, I did it on myself. I was 14. It's a tiny, tiny little happy face on my ankle. I did it with a needle and Indian ink on myself. Then the next tattoo, the first tattoo I professionally got done is a skeleton of a gecko that I have on my shoulder blade. I got that at Tattoos by Lou in 1997, like right after I graduated. I turned 18, I'm like, tattoo time. And then from there, many years down the road, I started getting more and adding more and adding more. I think in the past 5 years is where I've gotten the most tattooed. Since my separation from my ex, I was like, okay, it's time for me to be me, you know? And when I got my face tattooed, I knew that was kind of like the end of my corporate America career.
Yeah.
I felt it.
Right, of course.
I felt it, even though I was still working and I would have to cover it up every day. So I have to like wear a pound of makeup just to cover the line. Because I worked in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. And
it was just a physical manifestation of what you were feeling up here.
I
I
had already felt it. Like I already knew. I already knew what time it was, you know. It was just a matter of divine timing. When is it going to happen?
For sure.
And 3 months later, it was like, oh, here's COVID. Bye.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started getting heavily tattooed in the past 5 years. I've gotten a lot of them covered up.
Do each one of them have a different meaning?
Each one of them has a different meaning. Like all of my tattoos are they're very meaningful. They mean something. One of my favorite tattoos is my hand tattoo. I call it the bloom. Because, you know, you have to grow through different experiences to then have the flowers behind it.
Wow.
Everything flourishes.
Cool. That's why I call you Cleopatra. You got all the Egyptian
Well,
gods.
I have, so Isis is actually one of my guides. She's actually one of my spiritual guides. I have Bastet, who is the goddess of the feline world. She's also the goddess of sexuality in Egyptian culture. She's really fucking dope. I also have a black cat. His name is Eclipse, whose birthday is today.
Happy birthday, Eclipse.
Thank you. And then I have the
scarab. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So my comic book actually is heavy into mythology.
Okay.
So I spent a good chunk of last year just doing a lot of reading. And mythology has fascinated me ever since I was a little kid.
Okay.
Especially Greek mythology. It was my favorite when I was
love
right?
mythology, yeah.
And to me, it was really interesting when I started just studying different mythologies because I made connections and they're basically all the same. So check this out, right? In Greek mythology, you have Hermes, right? He's the equivalent of Loki in Norse mythology. And then if you bring it over to Santeria, or Lukumi, Afro-Cuban religion, it's the equivalent of Elegua. So if you start, and then his name is Thoth in Egyptian culture.
In Egyptian mythology.
What was crazy is I started making all these connections, and I just realized, like, man, human beings are so much more connected than they realize. You know what I mean? Like, all these different cultures that didn't know about each other, thousands of years apart, so it was impossible for them to meet, right?
Right.
Yet all their cultures worship these same beings or these same people, these same deities. They just gave them different names, right? So it was a really cool experience because I got to realize, like, how centralized our way of being is as humans. You know, we might look different. Obviously, our ways of living are different based on geography and things like that. Mm-hmm. However, like, it was just a really cool experience seeing all these different religions and mythologies and seeing
the connections,
right? And my conclusion, some people think I'm crazy, but whatever. I really think
we're all a little crazy.
I don't care what other people think about me. That's, other people's opinions, whatever. Everybody, their opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one,
And they all stink.
Yeah. So what I realized, my belief is that those were all the same beings. Like, we just gave them different names based on different cultures and things like that. So, yeah, mythology is really interesting. Religion is really interesting. Why we believe in things is really interesting. The conversation about a higher power and things like that is very interesting to me as well. Obviously, you're very spiritual. I like the meditation sessions you do on your page and stuff. They're super cool.
I'm a meditation facilitator, so I've been meditating for 17 years now. So this is not something that, it's trendy. I don't follow trends. I don't really follow anyone else's lead. I do my own thing. If people like it, great. I don't really do it for my fan base.
Right.
I do it because it brings me joy, and the fact that other people dig it, then great. Like, I wish everyone in the world would meditate. Like, if everyone would meditate for 9 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day, it would make life so much simpler. Because if you start your day with a meditation practice in place, trust me, everything else that happens to you throughout your day, you're going to be like, okay, it's happening for me. It's not happening to me.
I don't meditate per se. However, I have a routine every morning. In the morning when I get into my car and I'm heading to work, I don't put the radio on. I don't listen to a podcast. I don't listen to anything. It's dead silent for the full ride. And it takes me about 40 minutes, give or take, to get to work from my house.
But that's a form of meditation.
Right.
Sitting in stillness and quietness, that's a form of meditation. So people have this misguided concept of meditation. You have to quiet the mind. It is humanly impossible to quiet your mind as a human being.
Seriously. For real.
So I tell people prayer is you speaking to God, to source, to the universe, to goddess, whatever you choose to call that energy, right?
Right. Meditation
is you listening. Is you receiving the downloads, like they call in the New Age spiritual bullshit. It's bullshit to me. But it's receiving those messages. So thoughts come up. You might have prayed about something, right? Maybe a week ago.
Right.
And then you sit there and you're quiet. You're in it, you're with it, you go within, you're in your body, and then you'll get a thought of maybe a solution to whatever you asked for or you prayed for. Who do you think is putting that in your mind? You're getting your own answers. Everything is within you. We just look for external, right? We look to the external. We look for external validation. We look for people to validate us and make us feel good. Bro, I don't care what you say. If you don't feel good within you, no one outside of you is going to make you feel good.
110%.
Everything outside is external. It's decoration. This is all decoration. I know that when I'm out of this body, out of this flesh suit, the energy is going to be intact. Why? Because I'm solid.
Right.
And not solid like ice, because ice fucking melts. I'm solid. I'm the same that I am here with you, that I'll be in a fucking meeting with multi-millionaires. I'm still the same me. And that's what people forget. People forget to stay authentic to who they are. Your path is your path. Mine is mine. The whole thing of being spiritual is understanding our differences and still loving each other for it. And still respecting each other for it. We can agree to disagree. I had this conversation with someone last week. I'm like, yo, just because you're not agreeing with me doesn't mean that I'm going to stop loving you. On the contrary, I respect you because you have your own point of view and you're sticking to your word. And you're not changing your mind just because I'm telling you something. I tell my own children, I'm like, you don't have to believe anything I say. Research. I may be your mother, but I don't know it all. And I don't claim to know it all. There's a lot to learn. A lot. So when we go through like these spiritual awakenings, right? Because for the most part, people are going through it right now.
Right.
I haven't spoken to one person that's not going through it, Nelson. Right. Like everyone's going through something.
The world has been in that stage of reawakening for the past few years, I would say.
Right. Yeah, sure. Since COVID.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's given people an opportunity to actually look at life and what really matters.
For sure.
Like what's important to you. So I have, I'm also a neurolinguistics practitioner, and I implement cognitive behavioral therapy in my sessions. I'm not a clinical therapist, so let me start off with that, because people are like,
disclaimer.
You're a therapist? I'm like, no, I'm a practitioner.
Right.
But I implement these things into my sessions, and there's a difference between wants and needs. There's 5 basic needs that every human being needs. Food, water, shelter, sunlight, connection. 5 needs. Everything else is just wants. I want a new car. Do you need a new car?
Probably not.
I live in the city of Miami where public transit is probably the worst in the States. Guess what? I still make it to where I need to. Why? Because when there's a will, there's a way. I don't believe in excuses. I believe in actions. If I'm able to make it to where I need to go in a city and I don't own a car and I'm able to be there on time, people that run late is because they're choosing to.
100%.
Because they don't have the want.
For sure. Because if you wanted to be there on time, you'd be there on time.
You make it happen.
Yeah.
You make it happen. So in this whole spiritual realm, I laugh at it because it's funny. I don't fuck with people in the spiritual world, because I see right through them. I also read energy. So for me, it's like, yo, your energy already snitched you out before you even came into the room.
That's interesting. So most people wouldn't expect me to be a spiritual person, right?
And you're tapped in.
And I'm huge on spirituality, on having a relationship with whatever you believe in. And it's funny because this new age stuff, like all the people that are like super into all this, yoga,
they're brainwashed.
Like they're so full of shit.
They're full of shit. Listen, they're doing it because it's trendy, because it's cool. Oh,
right.
I'm walking around with cleansing with my sage. Okay, do you know what the natives used to use sage for? They use sage to call on spirits. So you're basically calling on spirits, and then you're wondering why you can't concentrate. Bro, do you know what you're doing?
110%.
Like, I'm all for it. Like, you want to have some sort of spiritual practice, please do it. But do your research. Does this sit well with your spirit, first and foremost? Oh, there's a full moon. There's a blood moon. I need to do this ritual. Is your body telling you need to do that ritual? Or are you doing it just because everybody else is saying that you have to do a ritual? I don't do new moon or full moon rituals anymore. Something in me told me you got to stop. I haven't done that in maybe like a year and a half.
So funny enough that you bring up sage. Most people don't know that aside from being a spiritual practice, it was a practical practice. Sage kills the bacteria in the air.
Yeah, it's an antihistamine.
So it's funny that people try to like, but it's like, no, dude, not just like Native Americans back in the day used to use this. This was used by medical practitioners to like cleanse the area and like. What's it called? Not purify. Sanitize the air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So to purify the air.
Yeah. So, yeah, most people, it's funny because I'm like the hustler, entrepreneur, make money. People think I'm a certain type of way when it comes to that topic, and I'm the total opposite.
No,
you know?
because people
So-
see you for the external, right?
Right,
like
right.
Like people see me and they're like super intimidated. I'm like, yo, you can have a conversation with me. Like, yes, I know I look intimidating, but I'm far from it. And it's
Right.
not that I'm intimidating; it's that they feel intimidated.
Yeah.
Because something in them is like, yo, something's up with this girl. You know what I mean? I don't take it personal. I'm like, let's have a conversation. And then they're like, oh my God, you're so nice. Yeah, what'd you think? I was a monster? I was going to bite you? No.
I mean, they see the different hair colors and the tattoos.
Yeah,
and the, you know?
but I'm ever changing.
Right.
Always evolving, so I can't stay the same.
What's
Can't
been your
say the
favorite
same.
hair color?
I'm kind of digging this red right
Yeah?
now, to be honest.
It's a season. I've seen a lot of girls with the red. I've seen them.
I don't know. Listen, on Saturday, I was home and I had blue last month. A couple days ago.
All right.
Yeah, a couple days ago. I had the blue and it was already kind of wearing off, and I'm like, nah, I need a change. Let me change it. And then I did some color and I was like, I wasn't feeling it. I'm like, no, too orangey. So then I mixed, because I do my own color. So I mixed 2 different reds, and this is the end result. And I was like, okay, this is dope. On Sunday, I went to the Everglades and I ate 1 gram of mushrooms.
Nice.
I am completely sober, but every now and then I'll do mushrooms.
I think psychedelics are different. It's a different
Exactly.
thing.
So I was addicted to drugs back in the day. I've been 12 years clean and sober from like heavy drugs. I stopped drinking almost 6 years ago. I stopped smoking weed 2 years ago. But every now and then I'll dabble with psychedelics because it helps me connect spiritually, right? And every time I go on a journey, it's always something new. And I learn something new and I connect in a different way. And on Sunday, I'm sitting there in meditation and all I saw was red.
Interesting.
Everything was red. Like everything that was coming at me was red. And I lead a meditation class on Mondays at the park. And everything that I got in my journey was basically the message I had to deliver at my meditation on Monday. People were so ungrounded. The people that showed up there needed grounding. And I was able to hold the space for them so they can ground and help them ground. That I was like,
That's awesome.
oh, cling, 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 cling. That was the whole message of me having to do this.
For sure.
On Monday. And I've noticed that even me, for the past 2 weeks since the beginning of the eclipse season, I was like all over the place. My emotions were crazy, and I'm a very emotional person, but I'm able to deal with my emotions, right? And I was just like, I was feeling like everyone else's shit.
Right.
Because I'm an empath, I'm empathetic. But I was feeling my shit mixed with everybody else's, but I'm like, I've been home. I haven't gone anywhere. Like, I'm hermit mode right now. Why? And it's the collective as a whole. Everybody's like, they don't know where they're going. They don't know if they're coming or going. And it's part of this whole change that humanity's going through. Yep. It's a shift. The shift is real.
Yeah.
The shift is real.
The shift is real.
The shift is real. And that shit is real. And it's about to get really real.
Straight up.
And from now until probably March is going to continue to feel different, and you're going to feel it in the air, and you're going to see it in people's energy. So that's why we have to be mindful of who we're choosing to have energy exchanges with.
Right.
Talking, the people that you connect with. Be very careful and very mindful of your words.
For sure. All right.
Let's go back to energy exchanges.
Okay.
All right. Yeah,
So-
I'm big on being careful with who you exchange your time with, because they, how do I put this lightly? People are time and energy vampires. Not all people. Some people can be, though. And you need to be very wary. The big part of my book, there's a whole chapter about associations, who you hang around. You are the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most, right?
Yeah, tell me who you hang with and I tell you who I am. That's a big saying in our culture.
Yeah. You know
Dime
what?
con quién andas y te diré quién eres.
You know what I noticed while I was writing this book is most of those old sayings are modern day. A lot of the modern day philosophers, personal development people, and that's what they write in all these books. Like, dime con quién anda y te diré con quién eres, right? So that's association. Who do you hang around? You are who you hang around.
You are who you hang with.
El diablo sabe más por viejo que por diablo. The devil knows more from his age than from being the devil.
Exactly, because experience.
Experience, right? Wisdom. all these sayings that my grandparents and my great grandma used to tell me, and it's like, bro, our culture is such a wise culture. You know what I mean? Hispanic culture in general. We carry so much wisdom and so much experience through our blood and through our genes. It's nuts, you know what I mean? And like I said, we take it for granted.
Yeah, the ancestors put in the work, man. Like
For sure.
We are their biggest dream. We are the realization of their dream. So what are we gonna do with our time here? We're just gonna fuck around and just be a waste of space? I'm sorry, I'm not here to waste space. That's why I'm a limitless being, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes. If I want to dabble in singing, maybe one day, I'll dabble into it. It might not be great, but at least I tried. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, as a fellow writer, I understand everything in the dynamics of sharing a message, right? And putting your experience out there. And when people resonate with what you write, it shows you that there's a greater purpose for you. That those things that you might think, it's not good enough, trust me, someone's going to resonate with it, and they're going to be like, yo, this is exactly what I needed. You know how many times I've written Instagram captions? I don't sit there to create content. I create content for other people. My shit is whatever comes.
Right.
I'm not, I'm going to schedule this post. No. If it's 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning and I'm getting something and I start writing, there you go. You know how many times people be like, yo, this is exactly what I needed. Like,
For sure.
what you wrote here is what I'm going through. I don't know where this shit is coming from. I'm just a messenger. Like I tell people, I'm like, yo, I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. Sometimes I say things and it rubs people off the wrong way, and that's something that you have to deal with internally. And it got shit to do with me.
For sure.
Most people take things very personal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
And what I wrote has nothing to do with you, and it's like, you know. But I had that big political video that went viral.
Yes.
And I had both sides. I had people who felt really supported and resonated with me, and I had just a bunch of idiots who took it the wrong way. And I'm like, man, I'm not even talking about you, and you're over here like getting all mad. If you have the time, bro. By the way, side clip. If you have the time to sit here on social media and get mad about shit, you have too much time on your hands.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah, if you're getting mad at people on social media, you're
bro.
está comiendo mierda.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Bro. So I love that about writing, is that like humans, it's so funny. We write a message, and we did this more for I wrote this book for me. You know, I love inspiring people. I love putting a message out there and other people read it and they resonate with it and they use it to inspire themselves. More than anything, though, it's for me. You know? So definitely. With writing, I feel you. I feel you in that for sure.
Yeah, man. With writing, it's like, trust me, sometimes I'm like delivering messages that I'm like, yo, wait, was that for me or was that for someone?
Was that for someone? Yeah.
Was that for that person or was it really for me?
Yeah.
So then you sit with it.
110%.
And you're like, okay, wait, maybe some of these things do apply to me.
Yeah.
Maybe some of these messages that I'm delivering to someone else, there's a big truth in it, because everyone is our mirror, right?
110%.
So am I projecting?
Yeah.
Am I projecting from my experience, or am I being able to say, you know what, maybe I was projecting and maybe that person was willing to receive it, but they were like, nah, that's not for me. It's happened.
That's what I do with my social media too, is that whatever I feel like I'm going through, I think about, what would I tell if I was outside of my body, what would I tell myself right now in this situation? And I just say it. And it's funny because it's like you said, it always positively impacts someone out there.
Yes.
You know, because there's other people going through the same issues you are. It's such writing and self-expression is such an interesting, you know, I'm taking a master class right now with Master Class, the company.
Yes.
They have different, you know.
Who are you taking the class with?
With the Duffer Brothers. They wrote the Stranger Things.
Yes.
Like that's on another level.
The writing is
it's crazy,
superb.
Right? So I find it really cool to see how like their writing process affected the world, and how different, like writing a TV show or writing a book, writing a comic book, writing a post on Instagram. It's all such an interesting way to be expressive towards the world. And I love seeing how different forms of writing affects the world in a different way. It's super cool. It's a super cool process.
Yeah, I think writing is one of the most beautiful ways to express ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
The play with words. Sometimes it's like, oh, oh shit, wait,
Right.
sometimes I'm like, yo, I really wrote this?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm sure it's happened to you. I think it happens to all writers that you write and you're just channeling shit, right? Like you're just writing,
Super cool.
and then you go back maybe a month, maybe a year. Because I look at stuff that I wrote 5 years ago. I'm like, yo, I wrote this?
Like an old journal or something, right?
How high was I when I wrote this? This is fucking dope.
It's another person. It wasn't me.
Right?
I can't take credit for this. It was the weed. You know?
It was the weed. It was a weed.
For sure.
No, but as you go growing in this process as a writer, as an entrepreneur, you see the different facets of things and how they all play out in your life, and how what's happening in your life could possibly be happening in someone else's life. And maybe you're giving that person a voice. I know because it happened to me. So I was in a very, very toxic marriage, all types of abuse. And I'm able to talk about it now because I've healed that part of me. You know, it's not an open wound anymore. I have love for my ex-husband. He's the father of my children. He was my best friend for 17 years. You know, I'm grateful for the time that we did spend together. He taught me a lot. He taught me exactly what I won't ever accept in love anymore. And I think that's why I've been single for 6 years. You know what I mean? Because I've learned from it. And we don't take the lessons. And when I started going through this whole process of writing, that I started writing about my life experience, there's so many women that have gone through that. And they're like, yo, you writing about it, you gave me an outlet to actually say, you know what, if she was able to do it, I can do it too.
Definitely, 110%.
And I don't know it all. And we're all learning, we're all living, and we're all learning, and we're going through this process of living.
It's funny that you mentioned the things you went through with your ex-husband. So I write a section in my book, and I talk about my father. So a lot of people have read that section where I talk about my father, and they're like, why do you hate your father? Why are you talking such bad things about him? Like, you shouldn't do that. You should honor your father. And I tell them, I'm not speaking badly on my father. I'm stating my experience.
You're stating your experience, and you're speaking your truth.
Right. So check this out. So I thank God every day for my father. My father loves me. He's in my life, and I love him too. Why do I thank God for my father? Because he lied to me as a kid. Guess what? Now I know what it's like to be lied to by your father. I'm never going to lie to my kids when I have kids in my life, ever. I know what it's like for your father to tell you, oye, te voy a recoger a las 8. I'm going to go pick you up at 8 o'clock. Be ready. And for you to be sitting there waiting, and it's 10:30 and no sight of him. I'm never going to do that to my kids. I love and adore my father because he did that, because that happened. Now I'm going to be the best father possible.
Right.
People, it's like you said, people think like they read these things and they self-project, you know, it's so crazy.
And also, you know, it's like, because I went through my own experience with my mother. I had a very abusive mother. My mother was my first abuser. And now on Sundays, we walk 5 miles. I didn't have a relationship with my mom until, like an actual relationship, mother-daughter relationship, until maybe 2.5 years ago, that I chose to let go of the resentment I had. Because I was carrying this big fucking duffel bag with all this resentment and all this hate and all this bullshit that was not serving me anything. Because I'm like, carrying this shit is fucking heavy. I'm still carrying it. My mama está viviendo su vida tranquila y tropical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Granted, she has her regrets.
Right,
because when you go through life, and children don't come with an instructional manual. Like, you're not going to have a kid and, oh, here, Nelson, this is the manual on how to raise your child. This is the best you can do. No, as someone that I used to always say, I'll never do to my children what my mother did to me.
There you go.
But I fucked them up in different ways.
You're human. It is what it is. We make mistakes.
But that's the thing. So our parents did the best they could with what they were given.
150%.
You know what I mean?
150%.
And sitting down and having dialogues and having conversations and asking, what was your trauma? Everything stems from childhood trauma. I know everything that started to show up in my adult life is because of all the shit I went through as a child. And looking for love, right?
Right.
Like, okay, well, the first person that was supposed to show me love used to beat the shit out of me. That means that, you know, the person that's in my life now, it's okay for him to beat the shit out of me because he loves me.
Wow.
You know, so it's looking at those dynamics and being able to go through it and grow through it and forgive, but first forgive self for not knowing better. And our parents did the best they could with what they were given, because they also went through their own share of traumas and problems and frustrations and shit that we know nothing about, because we're children, right? And our parents, we look at them like gods. Yeah. Like we have them on this pedestal that they're fucking human beings, bro. They're human beings. They might have had their own fucking addictions and their own ways of dealing with shit. And maybe your dad era un mujeriego, or your mom was abusive. You know what I mean? Like there's different facets to life. So understanding after I had children and me going through my drug addictions and my oldest daughter having to care for my younger children because I was too fucked up to even get out of bed. I fucked them up in my own way. But now I am grown enough, woman enough, and real enough to sit with my children and apologize to them and try to mend my wrongs, try to make them right. They're not going to forget what I did, but at least we can work on our relationship to make things better. Because now that I know better, I can do better.
That's really deep shit. That's super cool.
But it's the truth, man. You know, you live and you learn. And Nelson, it's been hard, bro. Like I've gone through my share of shit, but I've learned from it, and I don't take anything away from it, like at all. It's like, okay, this happened for me, not to me.
Not to you. Yeah, man.
It happened for me. It's taught me lessons.
It comes down to one word: perspective, man. You know what I mean? Perspective might be my favorite word in the English language. It's really, a
beautiful word, because once you start to look at the root of that word, you're like, oh shit, okay, because there's a difference between perspective and perception.
Wow.
How you perceive things is one thing, but the perspective is being. Perception is seeing.
Seeing. That's so awesome, man. So 2 things before we wrap up. One.
Yes.
So how'd you start getting into, I know you've worked on a lot of music videos and stuff like that. So how'd you get into that?
So my best friend Days, who happens to be my best friend, and he's
episode
also
coming soon.
Hey, let's go, Days.
I haven't told him yet, but it's all right.
One time for the homie. He's my barber. Well, I do my own hair now, but yes, he was my barber, and we started like discussing different things, and he put me on to an agency. They were looking for someone with my look, and you know, Days is the connector of dots. Yeah. I think we connected through Days as well.
Yeah, you're right. No, I met you through someone else, and then you led me to Days.
You met me through Pinky, but Pinky I met through Days.
Ah, he connects everybody. Look at that,
he's the connector. He's the dot connector.
Yeah.
So he hooked me up with this girl, and then she started hitting me up, and I've done a ton of music videos. It's always fun to do. Being on set, it's like I'm always the oldest one out of all these young kids. Like I hang around with kids that are my kids' age when I'm on set, because I'm like the oldest one there. But it's cool. It's a dope experience. You get to meet new people. Right. You get to meet the artists. I love people in production.
The last one you did was the Daddy Yankee video, right? I remember you posted it.
The last one I did, the latest one that came out was one with Kazu and Mora.
Yeah, I saw that one too. Yeah.
I did 2 Daddy Yankee videos from his last
the last album he came.
The last album, I was
legendary.
Yeah, Days and I were actually in both of them.
Cool.
Yeah.
You had like teal hair in that one, right?
Yes.
It was like teal color.
Yeah, it was teal. Yeah. It was teal.
Super cool.
Yeah, and then I did one with Ozuna and Anuel.
I mean, they did a whole album together, so yeah, probably one of those.
Yeah, I also did a really, really, really dope one with Farruko, but it never came out. It never came out.
Because he retired?
It's because he switched his whole thing. Now he's Christian now. And that video was going to be so dope. Bro, it doesn't even look like me, but maybe at some point it'll come out. And that one I was really looking forward to it, because I was just like, this is so different. I was able to get into character, and for me, like I like getting into different characters. I'm a writer, so So getting into characters and like doing different things is always dope. It's always good to have that experience.
My good friend Richie, who made the song that I use for the podcast.
Yes.
He just made a video. He was in a music video with Anuel. I think it's called the Nene or something. Yeah, he's making connections there, trying to make it in the music business. So he's super cool. So Cin, it's been a pleasure. I end most of my podcasts the same way. I ask my guests a series of 3 to 4 questions. So 1.
Yes.
What inspires you?
Life. My children. Being able to breathe. Just being, man. We forget to just be. We're so busy with the rat race and wanting to accomplish all these things, but we forget to just be. Just sit with yourself. You learn so much from just sitting and being. I know everybody wants to be hectic and like busy. No, that's not what life is about. Take a moment, sit outside, sit on the grass. Feel the earth under you, ground. Feel the wind around you. Go in the water, go in the ocean. Play. Play is so important.
So I don't know if I've told you this. So you know what's changed my life dramatically? Every day I wake up, I look up at the roof of my room and I say, thank God for another day of life. What waking up with gratitude has done for my life is like, I start my day, and then at the end of the day, when I put my head on the pillow, it feels really good to like,
Yes.
Thank God for letting me live another day of life.
Yeah, man.
And like, I'm so happy in those moments that like, I can't control what happens during the day, but I can control how I start and end my day.
And that's the key.
Yeah. So that's,
Being,
I feel you.
You know, the attitude of gratitude is the best way to live
Huge,
life, because when you have a grateful heart, things just come to you.
For sure.
Doesn't come easy, but anything that comes easy leaves easily.
For sure.
So I don't want people to just hand me shit. No.
Yeah.
Teach me something. Teach me.
For sure.
I'm always willing to learn.
So what's next for you?
Whatever the universe has planned for me. I don't make plans for myself anymore.
That's a really interesting way to live life.
I make no plans. I wake up every day and I'm like, what's with today? Tell me what I need to do. Lead me.
That's really cool, man.
Because
that's the most original answer I've ever had on my podcast.
When you surrender, Nelson, things just happen, bro.
Wow.
The more you hang on tight, the harder life becomes. When you say, you know what, I'll just take over. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I just know I need to be here. Lead the way. I know nothing. Even though I may know a lot, I know nothing. Every day, I wake up like this.
Blank slate.
Blank. What's with today? What can I create today? What do you need me to create today, Creator? Because we're creators, right? The Creator put us here. We're creators. What are you creating?
What's your dream?
To build a compound where children can go and feel safe, where they can create art, music, where they can expand botany, gardening, growing their own food, being able to become sustainable without the need of outside shit.
Cin, this has been amazing. How can people connect with you?
Okay, so for those of you that want to follow me on social media, my Instagram handle is Mastered My Chakras. That's MasteredMyChakras.
Sweet.
Yep.
On Instagram
and that's pretty much the only social media I have, because I run other people's social media and I'm like, by the time I get to mine, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this.
If anyone wants to collaborate with you,
if anyone wants to collaborate, DM me. I actually have my email on my Instagram, so you can reach me directly through my email. I'm always looking to collab. One hand washes the other and they both wash your face. So the more that we connect and we're able to collaborate and work together, the better it is, because we got to build community, you know?
Amazing.
At the end of the day,
I'm big on community. I'm huge on community.
We have to set the tone for the next generation.
For sure.
So they have something that they can look forward to, right? Like, we've destroyed the earth so much. That's why I do the racing of the butterflies. Like, I'm giving back to the earth, and I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm just giving back. We forget to give back. So building community is super important. Building, like tribes that can help sustain each other.
For sure.
Without the need for government, without the need for handouts, without the need for like external bullshit.
For sure. Cin, this has been awesome.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you so much for having me. It's
course.
an honor.
Oh, hey, this space, I tell all my guests, this space is for people that I admire, that have greatness within them, and you exude greatness.
Thank you.
Okay? So, Your Majesty, until next time, Cleopatra. Well, guys, another episode of the Montana Method Podcast. As always, signing off. Push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless. Till next time.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.